Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very special broadcast today. Australian Indian Radio streaming via Gentex Multimedia, and welcome to the 15th day of September. Well, in Brisbane, where we're streaming from, is 18 degrees at this point in time and sunny. So it is pleasant. It's cold, but not very cold. It's not very blistering hot. So, it is a good time of the year, and looking out that window, it just looks amazing. Looking down to the Howard Street wharfs and this side of the Cathedral Palace and the valley and beyond, all the way up to Gateway Bridge. So it's beautiful, day right here in Brisbane. Well, something that is not very good is this news of the community brawl within the community. And it is very, very unfortunate that incident like this has happened. Of course, when we look at it in Territory Police, were informed, we've been told that they were aware of some tensions brewing. But if you look at this media conference with the police, you'll see how carefully they have to choose the words. Of course, we know what they know, and what they can disclose is another matter. But it is rather unfortunate. So here's that report.
Some people had dispersed initially when they arrived. Again, I need to acknowledge straight up some of the great work done by our first responding officers at the scene in relation to the tactical first aid that they used. Even one of our members applied a tourniquet due to the severity of one of the injuries that they saw at the scene. Also need to acknowledge one of our dog squad officers who proceeded from that incident location and intercepted a vehicle shortly down the road that had up to 5 males inside it. He was by himself and he took that vehicle in. At this stage there, they waited and were assisted by QAS. We also know at this point we have up to 8 people across several hospitals with non-life-threatening injuries at this stage. As a result of last night's event, we have set up Operation Tango Rhubarb, which will be operated from Upper Mount Gravatt Station by our CIB there. We know this was witnessed by several people last night, and it was quite confronting. But police are asking for anyone that has any sort of footage, whether it be dash cam, phone, or have directly witnessed it, if they could contact us through Police Link or Crime Stoppers, and that Police Link number is 131 444. So happy to take some questions from you in relation to it. Look, at this stage, the investigation is quite new. We do know of some tensions within that particular community, and we have been engaging with that community in relation to it, but the exact motive of last night's attack is still it's still too early to get into. No, it's definitely nothing to do with that at all.
We know at this stage whether it's philosophical or a religious dispute at this stage?
No. Look, we don't. The reality is it's very early on. And like I say, we have been engaging with members of this community, but we don't understand the motive of how it escalated to 40 people behaving like that last night.
The point to note there is that it meant that he has been liaising with the community, but they failed to understand why and how it reached up to 40. The point there is that there were prior reports.
Not that I know of. It may form part of the investigation. Like I say, it's very early on at this stage. That investigation centre based out of South Brisbane will look at every angle in relation to those people. As you can imagine, with up to 40 people, there's quite a number of witnesses that we need to speak to today to get a clearer picture of exactly what happened. At this stage, we've got quite a number of our detectives up at hospitals and door knocking and making those initial inquiries.
Can you tell us what ethnic group or origins?
At this stage, they're members of the Indian community.
And in terms of the people that were taken to the police station last night and then released, were they assisting police? Did they?
So all he's able to disclose there is and responsible officer is that it's the members of the Indian community.
What happened? At this stage, we've got quite a number of our detectives up at hospitals and door knocking and making those initial inquiries.
Can you tell us what ethnic group or origins?
At this stage, they're members of the Indian community.
And in terms of the people that were taken to the police station last night and then released, were they assisting police? they give you much, and why weren't they charged?
Look, at this stage, it was so raw at this stage, and such a big disturbance like that, you need to make sure that we have a very full and clear picture. As I said to you, it was quite a confronting scene. I've witnessed the body cam footage of some of the officers that went there and had to apply that initial first aid. It was quite hectic. So for them at that stage, it was about understanding the clear picture of what was going on. My understanding is they have provided information to the investigators. However, a lot of that needs to be corroborated and followed up with today.
In terms of the disturbance being between two groups of people, does it appear that it's just two groups that they are part of, and are they relatively the same in size, or?
Yeah, all of those things very specific in relation to. What we do know is that, yeah, they are two groups that were known to each other, and at this stage, motives, size, reasoning is forming all part of the investigation that's going on here today.
Witnesses said that it all kind of happened very quickly. Do you have an idea, was this like an organised meeting spot that you think they converged on to clash?
Look, preliminary investigations have told us that there has been some social media chat in relation to that. That'll form part of the investigation centre's briefings today to look at all aspects of whether it was organised, who organised it, how did they come to meet at that specific spot.
The dog squad operator, how dangerous would that have been for him to apprehend them by in the car? It sounds like they gave up pretty quickly.
Well, look, as you can imagine there, he's attended a scene where he would have seen edge weapons being used. We know that there was bats, baseball bats, poles, different aspects and weapons there. He has then gone out and shown great tactical nous and courage to take 5 offenders and make sure that we had that scene. At that stage, as you can imagine, it's still unknown what their motives were and where were they going post that. So it was really important that we did do that sort of work, and so for him to take that on, it was a great piece of policing.
And as he's rightfully said, that it was quite a challenging task, but I think the police did very well to bring that under control at that point in time. And as far as comments, he cannot comment much as investigations are going on now.
I think the important thing for us is to take the ethnicity out of it. We just shouldn't see 40 people taking that sort of weaponry out in the street and doing what they've done to each other, regardless of what they are. And I think that's what I want to push here today is we don't want that sort of behaviour from any member of the Queensland community. It is unacceptable, and the Queensland Police Service takes a very dim view, and we'll investigate and prosecute as much as we can.
So that's the stance there from QPS at this point in time, and we'll keep you up to date. And as it progresses, and if there's any report that really needs to come forward, we will cover that as well. Right now, let's go into the Parliament House, where in a debate on tighter border protection. And here's our Premier.
We are trying to keep Delta at bay. Now, I know the opposition doesn't like our strong border measures, Mr Speaker. They never have. They never had, Mr Speaker. We heard the Leader of the Opposition, he was on Sky News, Mr Speaker, I think it was with Peter Stefanovic, that's right, asked about, 5 times what he thought of the strong border measures, would not say. He would not say. You've got a Leader of the LNP that would not say categorically, do they support our strong border measures in Queensland? It's a very simple question. It's a very simple answer. A yes or a no. A yes or a no.
A yes or a no from a politician, well, that could be a big ask, as we know that politicians are very well trained to answer questions, and yes or no is never a way that they would answer the question. Right now, we have seen the Queensland. Let's go to Victoria.
The vaccination rate in Australia's largest state is slowing, and it's bringing the rest of the country with it. Surging vaccine uptake in August has given New South Wales the widest vaccine coverage in the nation. Over 79% of the eligible population are at least partially vaccinated, and more than 47% are fully vaccinated. But as the state closes in on the 80% milestone, the vaccination rate is falling. At the end of August, the 7-day average for daily doses hit a peak just above 120,000. Now they've dropped close to 97,000, raising questions about whether the state's enthusiasm to go out and get a jab is starting to wane. Across Australia, more than 68% of the population aged 16 and older have had at least one dose. A little over 43% are fully vaccinated. But with the vaccination rate slowing in New South Wales, the national rate has also dipped. Daily doses have sunk from a peak of nearly 278,000 on September 1 to just under 262,000. There is good news in Victoria, however, which is now leading the nation's vaccine uptake. Just over 6% of Victorians received a first shot in the past week, compared to 4.7% in New South Wales and 3.4% in Queensland. A breakdown by region shows Victoria is home to 10 of the 15 areas with the strongest vaccine uptake in Australia. It's a dramatic shift from last week, when the top 15 were all in New South Wales and only 2 Victorian regions made the top 20. But Victoria's strong vaccine uptake has come at a cost. Last month, the state doubled the interval between Pfizer doses from 3 to 6 weeks in a bid to allow more people to get a first jab. New South Wales made the same decision at the end of July. As a result, the delivery rate of second doses in Victoria has dropped well below first doses. This is the opposite trend to New South Wales, where the rate of second doses has continued to rise, while first doses have fallen. Because of this, the gap between when Australia's 2 largest states are likely to reach their double dose targets is growing. Based on the current pace of second doses, Victoria is now unlikely to have 80% of eligible residents fully vaccinated until early December, a full 6 weeks later than New South Wales.
And that's the news there from Victoria, but, leading in those numbers. Well, the other thing that is happening is when, asked about getting that vaccination, one of the things is unless you have a medical certificate to prove or say that it is unsafe for a person to get the jab. And the GPs are seeing that there's more and more people coming and asking for that certificate. Here's that report.
Staying with COVID and amid all the talk of vaccine mandates in various industries, GPs are reporting an increase in patients coming to them to ask for a medical exemption from getting the jab. For more, let's bring in the President of the Royal College of General Practitioners, Dr. Karen Price. Karen Price, good morning to you. So what impact is this having on the GP network?
Well, it's extraordinarily frustrating. I mean, you don't need to get an exemption letter. There's very, very few contraindications to the vaccines. And usually if you can't have one vaccine, you'll be able to have another. So we need to get on with seeing our patients. We need to get on with the vaccine rollout. So we don't need to be writing letters for people. What we would like is for people who think that they need an exemption to come into us and have a talk about what their fears and concerns are.
OK, so you argue a lot of the calls for exemptions are simply unfounded on medical grounds.
Yes, I call it a dose of misinformation, Michael.
OK, and what are the reasons, the misplaced reasons patients are giving GPs as to why they reckon they should be exempted from any vaccine?
Well, I think the biggest reason is a variety of, I don't want to go down all the rabbit holes and wormholes that people are in, unfortunately. I think it's fear. And I think it's a lack of trust. And I think they feel there's some big conspiracy around the world or something. But clearly, vaccination is the way out of the pandemic. We've just seen the very tragic news of a 46-year-old man booked in and he's and losing his life. And, his family urging vaccination. This is the science. It is difficult. There is a lot of uncertainty in the pandemic and the way the virus works, but the vaccination is safe and it's the way out of this particular situation.
So essentially, this is a real-life example of the misinformation, sadly, that is proliferating on places like Facebook and elsewhere.
Absolutely, and the stuff that comes at us is really quite extraordinary, and it comes with sometimes, unfortunately, a fair bit of abuse. I mean, in my role, I certainly get all sorts of people saying to me all sorts of things, from Nuremberg and who knows what to jail and jail time, and what I'm doing to the population by talking about vaccination. So there's a lot of very angry and very confused people out there, and I really would urge them to have a more respectful discussion with doctors who are actually there to give them the science and help them through this very difficult time.
It is very difficult.
And I do agree with that, that in these difficult times, dealing with doctors, and of course, our behavior should be that of respect and not changing, because, of all the things that they do in looking after us. Well, right now, this next report is very good. Well, I really like it. Well, could you be eating French fries and losing weight? Yes, you had me right. Well, there's many things that are happening out there in the world today. Genetically modified food, whether you agree with it or not. The other debate is on euthanasia, and that is going through Queensland Parliament at this point in time. People always have their own views on many things that are considered natural. So food are natural. So, genetically modifying food and, of course, injecting other, foreign elements and sort of changing the course of nature. Is it good? Is it bad? But the prospect of eating French fries without guilt and not putting on weight would be a good thing too.
Tucking into some chips without piling on kilos sounds fanciful, doesn't it?
What we've done is we've discovered a receptor in the brain that controls appetite.
Bioscientists at University of Queensland then found a drug-like peptide from an African plant and modified it to interact with that receptor.
We'd now like to put that molecule into potatoes so that you could have your French fries and not worry about the consequences.
Their edible plant research is also leading the way in pain management, thanks to the highly venomous Queensland cone snail.
It turns out that that's a very potent painkiller, and we've now engineered that painkiller to be put into a tobacco plant.
Lead researcher Professor David Craig says this allows them to grow the pain-killing medicine in plants by modifying DNA.
The other thing that we could do is deliver through herbal teas.
It's called biofarming, where they grow peptide-based medicines in a plant like the tobacco plant and then harvest and refine the pharmaceutical peptide from that.
Nature's producing these molecules naturally. If we've re-engineered them to be anti-cancer drugs or anti-obesity drugs or painkillers, why not use plants as biofactories?
And since we're planning to produce this in plants, it should also be cheaper to manufacture as well as being environmentally friendly.
Professor Craig has invested decades into this research, travelling the world collecting rare plants with these stable mini circular proteins. And they're using peptides from the tomato plant to collaborate with researchers in Sweden to find a treatment for multiple sclerosis.
The researchers have literally come full circle from discovering drugs in plants to making drugs in plants, but clinical trials are still at least 5 years away.
Research like this that shows some promising results, early results, can actually help us provide some hope for the future.
It's wonderful that we can look to foods to heal. The key is not to sort of see it's like the magic bullet that you can overeat or eat anything just by taking something that, even is from a food source.
Sunflower and soybean plants and a common weed in the cabbage family are some of the other lab rat plants they're hoping to one day turn into biocures. Lexi Hamilton-Smith, ABC News.
So there you are, you can eat the chips and not put on the kilos. Well, that would be wonderful, won't it? Yes, I know there could be lots of smiles around the place as people love getting into those chips, but are always afraid about putting on those kilos and the calories that go with it. Well, it is time that it will happen, but once again, the debate always remains about changing the course of nature also. When we talk about looking after our environment, we get lots of people coming out on the streets and marching and protesting. There are many other things, which are good, not that they have, that they're in the wrong area. But again, you are meddling with the DNA. You are going into an area which is sort of out and reach and beyond that scope of human beings, but human beings being human beings, they will reach anywhere and they'll try everything. So, but anyway, it is a research and it is for the better, and of course the people would love to have the chips and not worry about putting on kilos and go for it. Well, right now it's time for our daily India report, and with that we'd like to welcome Ankita.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you glimpses of the changing India and the growing engagement of the Indian diaspora with India. In our first story, India says it is monitoring the situation in Afghanistan and will stand by the people of Afghanistan as a friend and a neighbor. India says that Afghanistan is passing through a critical and challenging phase, and as in the past, India will stand by the Afghan people. Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, in his remarks at the UN high-level meeting on the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan, said on 13 September that India has consistently supported a central role of the UN in the future of Afghanistan. Jaishankar said that the UN Security Council Resolution 2593, adopted during India's presidency on August 30th, should guide the international community's approach in the coming days. Meanwhile, India is monitoring the developments with understandable concern. Jaishankar said India had established development projects in all the 34 provinces of Afghanistan with an investment of nearly $3 billion. India and the global community want to ensure essentially that humanitarian assistance providers are accorded unimpeded, unrestricted and direct access to Afghanistan. The India-Africa Defence Dialogue will be held with every Defence Expo starting March 2022. India has announced that it will host a special India-Africa Defence Dialogue alongside every Def Expo to institutionalize the dialogue and begin nurturing a defence relationship with African nations. Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will host the Defence Ministers of African nations in the next India-Africa Defence Dialogue on the sidelines of the Def Expo in Gujarat state in March 2022. The Defence Ministry said the dialogue will help explore new areas of convergence for mutual engagements, including areas like capacity building, training, cyber security, maritime security and counter-terrorism. The foundation of India-Africa defence relations are based on the two guiding principles, namely Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, and Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, a Sanskrit phrase that means the world is one family. The first ever India-Africa Defence Ministers Conclave was held in Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, in conjunction with Def Expo on February 6, 2020, co-organized by the Ministry of Defence and the Ministry of External Affairs. It was the first in a series of Pan-Africa events at the ministerial level in the run-up to India-Africa Forum Summit 4. A joint declaration, Lucknow Declaration, was adopted after the conclusion of IADMC 2020 as an outcome document of the conclave. India-Africa Forum Summit 4 was postponed due to COVID-19 and is proposed now for 2022. The broad theme of this India-Africa Defence Dialogue will be India-Africa, adopting strategy for synergizing and strengthening defence and security cooperation. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will attend his first in-person Quad Summit to be hosted by US President Joe Biden on 24th September in Washington, D.C. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will travel to the United States for his first in-person summit of the leaders of the Quad countries, Australia, India, Japan and the United States. The summit is hosted by US President Joe Biden on 24th September. Other attendees are Prime Minister Scott Morrison of Australia and Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga of Japan. The Ministry of External Affairs said the leaders will review progress made since their first virtual summit on March 12th and discuss regional issues of shared interest. As part of their ongoing efforts to contain the COVID-19 pandemic, the leaders will review the Quad vaccine initiative, which was also announced in March 2021. Summit leaders will discuss contemporary global issues such as critical and emerging technologies, connectivity and infrastructure, cyber security, maritime security, humanitarian assistance or disaster relief, climate change and education. The shared vision of the Quad leaders is to ensure a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. Prime Minister Modi is scheduled to address the general debate of the high-level segment of the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly on 25th September 2021 in New York. The theme for this year's general debate is building resilience through hope to recover from COVID-19, rebuild sustainably, respond to the needs of the planet, respect the rights of people and revitalize the United Nations. India and the United States launched the Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue to enhance bilateral cooperation on climate and environment and to take forward the Agenda 2030. India and the US on 13 September launched the Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue to enhance bilateral cooperation on climate and environment. US Special Envoy for Climate John Kerry lauded India on its renewable energy target and said it was an opportune moment for both sides to invest in the energy transition. Addressing the launch event, Kerry said the robust India-US Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 partnership would set an example for the world on how swift climate action with inclusive and resilient economic development can bring the world closer to the climate goals and build stronger economies for both. Kerry said there's never been a better time to invest in the energy transition. He said the International Energy Agency has forecast if India seizes the clean energy opportunity, which it is, it could become the world's largest market for batteries and solar panels. The Agenda 2030 partnership was launched at April 2021 Leaders Summit on Climate between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Joe Biden. India's Union Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Bhupender Yadav, said the CAFMD launch will give both countries the opportunity to renew collaborations on climate change while addressing the financing aspects. He said the government, after enhancing the renewable energy target to 450 gigawatt and realizing the importance of hydrogen as the energy driver of the future, has launched the hydrogen mission. Kerry also met Union Minister for Power and New and Renewable Energy R.K. Singh to discuss further collaboration on climate change issues and work towards a genuine partnership between the two countries to pave the way for the rest of the world on energy transition. Singh told the US team that India is planning to open up huge bids for green hydrogen and electrolyzers in the upcoming months and requested the US to send their companies to participate in the bids. World Health Organization congratulates India for administering 750 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. The World Health Organization has congratulated India for achieving the landmark of administering 750 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. WHO Southeast Asia Regional Director Dr. Poonam Khetarpal Singh said though it took 85 days to administer the first 100 million doses, India reached 750 million doses from 650 million in just 13 days. Indian Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandaviya said on Twitter that India represented the world's largest vaccination drive and is constantly creating new dimensions. Over 180 million Indians have received 2 doses and therefore are fully vaccinated. The government said that the vaccination exercise as a tool to protect the most vulnerable population groups in the country from COVID-19 continues to be regularly reviewed and monitored at the highest level. A new provision in a US bill could reduce the wait for green card processing for thousands of Indians. A new set of immigration provisions to be introduced as part of a budget reconciliation bill in the US could result in a reduction in wait times for Indians in line for permanent residency. The commendation includes a set of measures including allowing people in the employment or green card backlogs to seek a waiver of the annual country cap limitations by paying a super fee of $5,000 at the time they file their final adjustment of status applications. Indians currently face long waits for permanent residency on account of annual country quotas. They also account for a majority of the applications for employer-sponsored green cards, with a majority of them being H-1B visa holders. Companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft and Amazon are top sponsors of green cards for their employees in a bid to hold on to highly skilled talent, which is in relatively short supply in the USA. A green card is an identity document that shows that a person has permanent residency in the United States. Green card holders are formally known as lawful permanent residents. Despite good initial reviews, Kangana Ranaut starrer Thalaivi has a dismal opening weekend at the box office. Bollywood superstar Kangana Ranaut, playing former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister J. Jayalalitha in the film Thalaivi, received good reviews prior to release on 10 September in cinemas across India. But initial box office numbers showed that positive reviews did not produce results. Reportedly, in the first weekend, the film could collect just 30 million rupees in India. Both Hindi and Telugu versions were not liked by the people. Expectedly, the Tamil version did fairly better among all the versions. Directed by Al Vijay, Thalaivi, the film was well received in Tamil Nadu, the home state of Jayalalitha. One of the major reasons for the film's dismal box office start is the lesser screen count, since major multiplex chains like PVR Cinemas, Inox Leisure Limited and Cinepolis refused to screen the Hindi version of the film in North India. Thalaivi chronicles the life of late actor and politician J. Jayalalitha. It showcases her journey from being an ace actor to becoming the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, state of India, for 6 terms. Besides Kangana, the film also stars Arvind Swamy as actor turned politician MGR. Actors Prakash Raj, Bhagyashree and Jisoo Sengupta play other prominent roles in the film.
और ये सत्ता की लड़ाई भी मैं जीतूंगी, क्योंकि महाभारत का दूसरा नाम है जया.
That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report. Thank you for watching.
And gentlemen, that's about all we have in this segment. And don't forget that we are back at 10 with the real estate update with Usha Chandra right here. So just take a quick break, go get your coffee while we set up for the next show, which will be the real estate update with Usha Chandra and the weekly updates on that. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us on this very special presentation. Of course, special thanks to our team in Delhi, from PIO TV, the Gupta family, and Nikita Dev for the presentation on a daily basis. We're getting good reviews on the presentation. So until the real estate update with Usha Chandra, it's goodbye from me.